27th, 2020 meeting of the South Washington County Telecommunications Commission to order. As previously noticed, this meeting is being conducted by telephonic means pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021. Conducted on March 17, 2020, Board Chair Dave Thiede issued a written determination that SWCTC's in-person meetings and meetings conducted under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.02 are not practical or prudent because of a health pandemic or declared emergency. The South Washington County Telecommunications Commission's Chair, Dave Thiede, is not physically present at the Commission's regular meeting location, and all commissioners are participating through telephonic means. All commissioners can hear one another and can hear all discussion and testimony. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting by calling the Commission's teleconferencing system at 651-300-1528. All members of the public can hear all discussion and testimony and all votes of the commissioners. All votes will be conducted by roll call.
We'll begin roll call. Chair Thiede.
Here.
Vice Chair James.
Here.
Treasurer Bloom.
Here.
Secretary Rom.
Here.
Councilmember Date.
Here.
And Commission Director Diefenbach.
Here.
All right. We have a quorum.
Very good. We'll then move to item 3 is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second it.
We have a motion and a second. Please do the roll call.
Commissioner Thiede.
Aye.
James.
Aye.
Bloom.
Aye.
Rom.
Aye.
Ingman.
Aye.
Date.
Aye.
Diefenbach.
Aye.
Very good. We have an approved agenda. Move on to number 4 is public comment. We'll open it up to public comment. Don't know if there is necessarily any, but the floor is now open for public comment. Seeing none, we will close public comment. Move on to number 5 is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve consent?
So motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call roll.
Commissioner Thiede.
Aye.
James.
Aye.
Bloom.
Aye.
Rom.
Aye.
Ingman.
Aye.
Date.
Aye.
Diefenbach.
Aye.
Very good. The agenda, consent agenda is approved. We'll now move on to number 6 is reports. Mr. Executive Director, you have some things for us tonight.
Yes, thank you, Chair Thiede and Commission Directors. I'm pleased to report that this evening we'll be hearing a presentation from Anna Anderson with Harrington Langer & Associates regarding our 2019 financial audit. That'll be in just a few moments. And the newly formed committees got together for the first time over the last month. And in the report, I have some very condensed notes from those meetings. Primarily, the HR committee spoke with our benefits broker, and we looked at our current plan and the premiums for 2021's budget. We're not expecting it to increase very much. It's going to be a very, very little increase. And if you recall, I had mentioned last year's increase was pretty substantial, which prompted this to look at our plan for this year. But it's only increasing by like $20 a month. It's still in the budget at about approximately $500 a month. And we are, as part of a recommendation from the committee, and we're going to take a look at a couple different plans from different providers just to make sure that we're on par with what we're paying, and that we're not missing an opportunity with another plan. The strategic planning committee met, and we reviewed the gaps chart that we had left off with earlier this year before the pandemic. And there's still some work to be done with that. We're going to consolidate that plan more. That's something I'll have for the next meeting with them. And we discussed some of the community engagement activities that we've done this year that is part of the plan. And we were weighing some of the future steps towards diversifying our funding and the potential for work for hire. Something that's definitely a broader conversation to be had here in the next couple months. One thing I left off here that we also talked about was how SWCTC can fill the void that the local newspaper has left in the area. And obviously there's a lot of great opportunity there. And we're looking at ways in which we can capture some of that much needed information for our communities.
Some of that local news.
Yes. Our informational water documentaries is wrapping up, and I believe Ann will talk a little bit more about that in production. But we've gotten some really great responses, positive feedback on it, so we're really excited about it, hoping to wrap that up by the end of this month. It's going into its final phase of production. NATOA and MACTA legislative activities and association work. Just want to mention that NATOA's conference is next week, starts next week. So please register if you'd like to attend virtually. And NACTA's conference will be in October 20th and 21st. We're working with some of the pricing structure with that conference to keep it very low for the PEG stations around Minnesota to attend. And because it's virtual, we're marketing it more to the outstate communities as well. But looking at the pricing structure, we'll be able to bring all the members of this commission, for example, under one price of about $170 for the entire commission. So really low pricing. It's a 2-day event that will have a production track for producers, video producers, and a legislative policy track. Our Comcast fee audit and renewal discussions I just want to let everyone know that they are moving forward. There's really not a lot of detail to report right now, but we are in contact with Comcast and things are going well. So that's still a work in progress. You'll see on our commission goals for 2020 that Lonnie and the cities and the external vendors have completed all the major projects for 2020 that we had planned out for this year. So kudos to Lonnie for project managing all those projects for us, and he'll be speaking a little bit later as well. We've got, I guess the one last thing I'd like to mention is that we found out that the Minnesota State Broadband Grant application window had opened up for 2020. And so I connected with both CenturyLink and Comcast to see if we could strike a partnership to address an area in Great Cloud Island that is unserved. And CenturyLink declined because they said it wasn't in their planned capital build-out area for this year. However, Comcast said that they would like to partner with us. And so Mike Bradley and myself had got some information from the town clerk, Cheryl McCullough, last year, about this time last year. And we got those addresses from her in the specific area, and I forwarded that on to Kate over at Comcast. As of today, their engineer team is looking at it and to see if it will meet the application requirements for this year. So we still have some time. And it was great to hear that they wanted to partner on that. So that's a work in progress as well.
That's good.
Yeah. And that's it for the report, Mr. Chair. I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions for Mark? Hearing none, I guess we'd move on to your production report. Is it
Yep.
Ann?
Good evening, everybody. Let's see, last time I reported, I got to tell you that we won 11 national and local awards. And tonight I get to tell you that we're up for 6 more national awards through NATOA, which is great. Mark mentioned that that's going to be held next week at the conferences. So the award ceremony will be Thursday next week at 6 p.m. and anybody can watch that. They'll have the link at natoa.org. We know that 4 awards are up for first, second, or third place, and then 2 of those awards are honorable mentions. So I get to add to our list this year. We're still waiting to hear back from the Emmys, so we'll find that out. I'm sure most of you are aware that this is an election season, and we are working pretty hard on election coverage. I think this year in particular, I think Mark said the local paper isn't around, so we really are that one place that people can go to get to know the candidates running for city council, county board, the state, Senate, and House. So it's more important than ever that we really get this coverage out to people. We're teaming up with the League of Women Voters and the Woodbury Chamber of Commerce to hold several candidate forums. Those are going to be live on Channel 18, as well as on our website at swctc.org. We're also doing several promos about absentee voting, mail-in voting. We all know that this is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, so we're doing something about women in voting. And we're also going to have candidate profiles. So candidates will be getting notification next week about coming in to do 2.5-minute videos in our studio. I'm going to take some COVID precautions this year. Candidates will need to come in alone. They'll need to wear a mask until it's time to talk. And then we're going to have more time in between to like sanitize everything, so everybody can feel safer about the process. Mark mentioned we are finishing up our water documentary, which has been a really great, sometimes frustrating process. It's the first time that we've done this big collaborative video, which is always complicated when you get a group together to do that, but it's been a really great learning experience, and we're excited for everybody to see it. It'll be coming out. Well, it'll be completed next month. Distribution is still being talked about, but we're very excited about that finishing. And then in your packet, there's a list of all the productions that we've done the last couple months. A few of note, we made up a new phrase. It's called Stay a Leave Egg Away, which Lee Vague is the public safety director in Woodbury, and he's a little over 6 feet tall. So we said, well, if you can stay a Lee Vague away, then you'll be safe. So that video got some good play, and people thought it was funny and kind of cleverly done. We also covered the new Carver Lake Bike Playground, did a video about Settlers Island in Cottage Grove that featured a Tom Hanks film, Castaway. And we did a heartwarming story about a woman in Newport who maintains a free little library, which I think is being used even more today. So that's my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ann? Seeing or hearing none. Thank you, Ann, and we'll move on to technical report. Lonnie?
Good evening, everyone. You guys, I don't know if you can see this, but it looks like I got a Barbara Walters filter on my camera. I'm not sure what's going on here.
You look better.
Yeah, right. Only a face mom could love. Things have been going well. I was on vacation for 2 weeks, but I will say this: we have a really good crew who can help back me up when I'm not around, and so I want to give kudos to all my coworkers and everybody that helps me when I'm not around, even when I am around. It's a good team, and we got a really good fit with everybody. So I'm really lucky to work here because it's a good fit. So I just want everybody to know that right off the top. So things we've been doing, most of the projects are wrapping up if they've not wrapped up. We did finish the public safety room in Woodbury, and Rob can answer or agree or not, but I believe it's working fine. I think they had a couple meetings in there already, and it seemed to work fine. I'm pretty excited about that because I was really nervous about how that was going to turn out, but it turned out really well. Public Works in Cottage Grove just finished up. We finally got the audio to work there after some finagling, but we got that to work. I just tonight finished up Newport, and I got that to work like the other cities work now with Zoom, so we don't have to have a web camera or we don't have to have a Google camera there anymore. It's just like doing a regular meeting, just like we do all the other ones. So that was good news. That took about a day for me to figure out. I'm not the fastest guy, but I'll eventually get there. So let's see what else. Public safety, public training. St. Paul Park at Public Works, we added a new monitor there for them and a barcode click share. And the reason was they are doing a lot of training and they need to be able to present videos to their employees. And basically it turned out super slick. I had Z Systems do that one and they did a really good job on that one. So I've kind of used Z Systems and AVI for most of our projects. AVI seems to be better at the really big stuff in our council chambers, and Z Systems seems to be really good and priced right for our monitor installs and simpler tasks. So they've been doing well there too. One other thing, just so you guys know too, the ice arena in Cottage Grove finally got completed. That project was going on for a long time. We were waiting on a TV to be hooked up into the sound system in the session area, and that one finished up last week. So that's all done as well. So as far as I can remember and know, we're on task for having everything completed pretty much for this year, unless something big comes down the line. But right now we seem to be doing. Oh, one other thing we did was at the Woodbury Chamber. In the chambers, we added a web camera and a sound bar, and it's very impressive. I was a little skeptical at first, but it's actually one sound bar that's the speaker and the microphone, and it seems to do very well at audio for that room. So they can now do workshops in the back of the chambers and do Teams meetings from there. So, with all the COVID things and more people working from home and working remotely, we've really adjusted, I think, very well to how things are being done. And it's changing every day, the way things are doing. Things are getting easier. Costs are coming down a little bit. So it's kind of exciting to be able to, dip your toes in all this different stuff. So, and then one other thing we've been discussing, Mark and I have kind of been discussing is maybe looking at a production van to do not only for storage, but for, we've really stepped up how we do productions. It's just not one guy and one camera anymore. We put some thought into how we're doing our productions, and that's showing with the awards we're up for. And so with doing those type of productions, it's taking more people and more gear. And to me, having a production van allows you to take everything you need in one vehicle. And it could be a source of advertising too. We could wrap it or put our logo on it and kind of get our name out in the community a little bit more. That's something that we're kind of working on right now and just kind of researching. And that's about all I have. If you guys have questions, please feel free.
Yeah, I will make a note. Thanks, Lonnie. I will make note about the we did have a little discussion about the production van and so forth, and kind of with our possible focus of doing a little bit more of the local news and maybe even some sporting events or increase the interest that people have and the viewership and so forth. Maybe something like that would actually be quite helpful. And so I don't know, Lonnie, was there any more discussion about that van that you had?
No, and the gentleman that has the van that we were talking about is out of town for a while. He'll be back, I think, the 29th mark? Is that what we said? And that's just one example. We can keep looking. It's just, it's just to give us an idea. But I think in the long run, it'll be beneficial all the way around for us. Plus, with the elections going on, we could be a mobile unit hitting different election places, and you could really do some nice stuff with it.
Right. Okay, are there any other questions for Lonnie? Seeing or hearing none, I guess we'll move on to B, which is the treasurer's report. And is that going to be Mark, you, or is it going to be Brian?
No, Mark can take it.
Yeah, I can start at least. In the packet is the Q2 P&L through June 30th. And the one thing I'd like to point out is that you may recall that this time last year we had decided to reduce our revenue our revenue outlook for this year by 10% because of the FCC ruling that had occurred in August. And what we've found, we've received three quarters now of company distributions from Comcast and CenturyLink, and there appears to not have been any in-kind reduction as of yet, and they haven't notified us of that yet. There has been some slow loss due to consumer choices and cord cutters and streaming. However, the one thing I wanted to point out was that our revenue, you'll see, is higher than expected for our budget. So we're about 70,000 or so over our revenue expectation going through June. So some of the bigger projects that we were wrapping up that Lonnie was talking about haven't hit this P&L here, but you'll see it at the end of Q3, and that's it. Any questions about that?
No questions? Hearing or seeing none? Thank you, Mark, and we'll move on to the legal report. Mr. Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, everybody. I have, I think, 4 things to report on tonight. The first is the NATOA conference. I hope you can join us. I'll be presenting on September 2nd at 12:15, so make sure to hit that one. It's going to be, I recorded it already, so I think if there's awards for most creative legal presentation, I should be in the running for that one. So we did a Family Feud style presentation, and for at least for my piece. So hopefully you enjoy it. But anyway, it's a great conference. It's all online, so it's easy to attend, and I hope you can all attend some or all of it. The 621 appeal, that's the appeal of the cable franchising order, the FCC's cable franchising order, continues to move forward. We've received the FCC's appellate brief and NCTA's interveners brief. We're reviewing those briefs and preparing a reply brief, and we will be submitting that reply brief in around September 24th of next month. The franchise fee review settlement, Mark mentioned briefly, that is progressing. Comcast did submit a new proposal that had significant movement. I'm working with the executive directors, including Mark, on responding to that proposal. I'll be doing that probably in the next 3 business days. And we'll report more on that at your next executive committee meeting. Franchise renewal is also progressing. Comcast has submitted a new proposed franchise that was completely different than the one we had proposed. But we've worked through that. We've put together a new document that we will be sharing with Comcast once Mark's able to review it, and we're also going to ask Rob and Brian to review it as well before submitting it to Comcast. But we expect in the next couple of weeks to get that over to Comcast. And then finally, on the van, this wasn't a regular part of my report, but I did hear about the van, and you may want to check, Mark, and you may want to check with Ramsey Washington, because I think they were looking at buying a new van, and they have an old van that they may be willing to discount for you. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not sure if the old van is a good option for you or not, but just maybe worth a phone call to Tim Finnerty over at Ramsey Washington.
Great.
With that, I think that's my report for tonight. Happy to answer any questions as always.
Any questions for Mike?
And the mystery machine. So
Yeah.
I know it's a bad joke. You have to remember Scooby-Doo from a long time ago.
Yeah.
Look at that one.
All right, if there's no other constructive comment, no.
Those meddlesome kids.
Yeah, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 7 is unfinished business, and we have Anna here to, I assume, to kind of talk about the audit a little bit. Is that right?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Anna Anderson from Harrington, Langer & Associates. Our accounting firm performed the audit on the 2019 financial statements, and I am here to present the results of that audit as well as the annual financial report. Okay, if we go to the next page, thank you, Mark. You see our independent auditors report. This report has 5 main components. It's all the paragraph headings there. The first one talks about management's responsibility for the financial statements. The second talks about the auditor's responsibility. On the next page, you can advance one. Perfect, great. There's our audit opinions. We have issued an unmodified clean audit opinion, meaning the financial statements are fairly stated in accordance with accounting principles. The next topic, the other matters, there's some required supplementary information. There's the management discussion and analysis that we'll see coming up, as well as some budget and para schedules. And then the last paragraph there, the other reporting required by government auditing standards. This discusses the internal control report that we also issue. So let's then go to page 3 to the management discussion and analysis. This analysis is going to give us some good highlights and overview of the operations for 2019. We're going to talk about the basic financial statements. All of the revenue is recorded when earned, and expenses are recorded when they are incurred. There's 3 main reports we're going to look at. If you could scroll down just a little bit, please. Okay, there we go. We have the statements of net position, the statements of revenue, expenses, and changes in that position, as well as the statement of cash flows that we're going to look at. On to the top of the next page, the financial highlights. At December 31st, 2019, the commission had a net position of $3,651,000. Of that, $2.2 million was represented by the amount invested in capital assets, and about $1.4 million was designated for capital equipment replacement. The commission's net position decreased from the prior year, and this decrease is attributable to a $577,000 grant issued in support of the construction of the Hero Center. This decrease is about 8.5% from prior year, and this was approved by the board. In the next section, you see a chart. This shows us the kind of a summary of the statement of net position. You see your assets. You had total assets of $4,336,000. This was a decrease of about $1,000 from the prior year. The next item is deferred outflows. This is related to the pension plan. And we have our liabilities. Total liabilities were $645,000. And that was a slight decrease from the prior year as well. Next is the deferred inflows, also related to the pension plan. And if we take our assets and deferred outflows and then subtract off the liabilities and deferred inflows, we get that net position. And the net investment in capital assets increased about $500,000 from the prior year. And the unrestricted net position decreased $865,000, giving us that total decrease in net position of about $347,000. On to the top of the next page, this changes in net position. This next table shows us the program revenues. Operating revenues were down about $35,000 from the prior year. We have some general revenues. The main decrease there under miscellaneous, that was just a loss on disposal of some old capital assets and equipment. So your total revenues of the $1.7 million, that's a decrease of about $45,000 from the prior year. The next section under expenses, operations increased significantly. That's where we see that Hero Center grant payment. Your total expenses are about $2.1 million. If we take the revenue minus expenses, that's how we calculate that change in net position of the $346,000. At the bottom of the page, it discusses your revenue and expenses. The major sources of revenue are the same as prior years. It's mainly franchise fees and PEG fees. The major expenses, again, were wages, benefits, occupancy, franchise fee reimbursements, as well as depreciation, and then also that Hero Center grant paid. And the commission was able to return about $200,000 to its member cities in 2019. On to the top of the next page, capital assets. The commission had capital assets of $2.2 million. And during 2019, the commission acquired approximately $843,000 of new equipment as well as leasehold improvements. In the budgetary analysis, revenues for 2019 were approximately $52,000 higher than expected, and expenses were approximately $582,000 over budget. And again, that's that grant that was paid. That completes the management's discussion and analysis. Now let's look at the financial statements on the next page, page 7. We will start with the statements of net position. This provides the details of what we had previously just discussed. A few things I want to highlight here. Cash and cash equivalents decreased about $918,000. We'll see some details of that on the statement of cash flows coming up. In the middle there, capital assets. There will also be a footnote in that coming up. Total assets in the middle of the page. Your total assets were the $4.3 million. And we have the deferred outflows. Those again are related to the pension plan. We'll see a footnote on that. Towards the bottom of the page, your total liabilities were $645,000. And at the very bottom of the page, the net position, again, the net investment in capital assets of $2.2 million and unrestricted net position of $1.3. All right. On to the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in that position. We previously discussed that operating revenue and the two categories there. The next section, operating expenses. The majority of these expenses are fairly consistent with the prior year. There's a few that changed significantly. The first one, salaries and wages, are up about $38,000, but those increases are consistent with what you had budgeted for the year. The next significant change was professional fees. They're up about $33,000, and $26,000 of that is legal fees. The next line item, video production supplies, are up about $20,000. And this has to do with additional production costs with that water documentary that Ann was discussing earlier. Towards the bottom of the list, you see the Hero Center grant payment of $577,000, and then also that member city franchise fee reimbursement of $200,000. Continuing to scroll down, the non-operating revenue and expenses, total non-operating revenue expenses were $11,000. And again, revenues minus expenses get us to that change in net position, or a loss of $346,000. Overall, even with that loss, again, that was kind of the one-off payment there that you had planned for. You do have a really strong net position. The commission costs about $126,000 a month to operate normal operations, and therefore you have about 10 months of reserves. And typically we see anywhere between 3 and 6 months, so you do have a really strong net position. On to the next page, the statement of cash flows. This statement reconciles that $918,000 decrease in cash and investments that we saw previously. The first part is the net cash provided by or actually used in operations of $110,000. Then you had purchases of assets and equipment of $843,000. And then also interest income, your cash flows from investing activities of $34,000, leading to that net change in cash and investments of $918,000. Any questions on the financial statements? Okay, let's then move on to the footnotes, which start on page 10. Note 1, first I was to say the notes to the financial statements provide details of what we just discussed to the financial statement users and readers. Note 1 is a lot of standard definitions and required language of governmental accounting standards. So I'm going to have you scroll down to note 2, which is on page 13. Starts with your deposits and investments. Great, perfect. So all of the deposits are fully insured as required by state statutes. Onto the top of page 14, it just details your investments there. It's the 4M fund of about $1.2 million. The next footnote, the capital assets. The table at the bottom of the page there shows the capital expenditure activity for the year. We had additions of the $843,000, and then some disposals of equipment and leasehold improvements. On to the top of the page 15, note 4, your commitments. The commission has a facility lease that expires in 2020, and at December 31st, 2019, the lease commitment, the future commitment was $61,496 on that lease. Note 5 provides details for the franchise fee reimbursements. Reimbursements were issued to the city of Woodbury as well as the city of Cottage Grove. Note 6 at the bottom of the page starts discussing the defined benefit pension plan, or the PARA plan. And this footnote actually covers pages 15 through 21. If we look at the top of page 16, It provides details about it. It just talks about how para provides retirement, disability, and death benefits for employees. At the very bottom of that page, it talks about the contributions. Yep, keep going there on to the next page. Perfect. In the top there, the general employees fund contributions. The commission's contributions to the fund for 2019 were $30,731, and the contributions were equal to the required contributions as set by state statute. Pension costs, all of these costs are actuarially determined. And the bottom of that first paragraph there talks about there's a small decrease in the proportionate share. That decrease was 0.0003%. In the very last paragraph on the page, in 2019, the commission recognized pension expense of $27,839 for its proportionate share of the general employees pension plan expense. On to the top of the next page. This table provides details of the deferred outflows of resources and the deferred inflows of resources that we saw in the statement of net position. The total of that first column, 42,246, we saw this as an asset, and the total of the second column, 81,863, that was listed as a liability on the statement of net position. On the very bottom of this page, the total pension expense recognized by the commission for 2019 was $33,314. On to the top of the next page. This portion just discusses the actuarial assumptions used in calculating these figures, and all of the actuarial assumptions are the same as the prior year. So we're going to look on into the next page. There's a table here that shows us the asset holdings and the different rates of return for the pension plan. And then it also discusses the discount rate at the bottom. The discount rate used to measure the pension liability was 7.5%. On the top of the next page, it talks about the pension liability sensitivity. If that discount rate were to change even as much as just by 1%, the liability will fluctuate by a large amount. Note 7, the risk management. There were no significant reductions in insurance from previous years or any settlements in excess of insurance. Note 8, the board designated unrestricted net position. We talked about that previously. They designated $1.4 million. And then note 9 talks about how the commission is a part of a lawsuit regarding franchise fees, but at this time, they don't know if the likelihood of an unfavorable outcome is uncertain, and you're unable to estimate any amount of potential loss. Any questions on the footnotes or the financial statements? The rest of this report is some. Oh, go ahead.
This is Dave. I do have a question on the pension liability sensitivity. Is that it is fairly sensitive as it appears. Is that a concern of any sort?
No, not at all. So that is, again, it's actuarially determined. And this is just shown to you as far as, things could fluctuate. They're using that estimate of the discount rate of 7.5%. And if that rate, the actual rate were to change, this is how the liability would change.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, now let's advance to page 27, which shows our report on internal controls. Yep, there we are. Okay, this is the auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance. And in the middle of the page, it talks about internal controls over financial reporting. In our audits, we are testing and doing some walkthroughs of different controls, but we're not providing an opinion on the effectiveness of any of those controls. And we did find 2 deficiencies. The deficiencies are the same as prior years. And we'll talk about those further on page 30. But I do want to draw your attention then to page 28, the compliance and other matters. Through our tests, we did not disclose any instances of non-compliance or any other matters that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. On page 30, we have the schedule of findings and responses.
Sorry.
Yep, keep scrolling down a little bit. There we go. Okay. The first one, the lack of segregation of duties. Again, these 2 findings are the same as prior years. This condition is common to size of organizations of your size due to the limited number of office personnel. And we just ask that management and the Board of Commissioners continue to provide oversight over the financial reporting process, as well as review accounting policies and procedures, as well as the financial statement information. The Commission also has additional procedures through its return of value calculations, which also mitigates any risk there. The second item is the financial reporting process. We're required to disclose to you that the Commission has requested our assistance from the auditors as we drafted these financial statements and notes. Again, this is not uncommon to organizations of your size. Rather than having you bear those costs internally, you're relying on our expertise. So what we recommend again is that you just continue to monitor financial activities and provide oversight to the financial reporting process. Any questions on either of those items?
So Anna, this is Dave again. We'll probably never get rid of those, will we?
Correct.
2 years when I first got on the commission, it was like, wow, what do we do? How do we get rid of those? And we've tried to do some different things, but those doggone things just keep showing up on your audit report. So
Yes. And to get rid of the first one, the lack of segregation of duties, you would need an accounting staff of about 5 to 7 individuals, which obviously you're not going to incur that cost.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
All right. Let's next look at the management letter then quickly. This management letter provides required communications in regard to our audit. The first section there, the significant audit matters. No new accounting policies were adopted during the year. And I also want to note that all significant transactions have been recognized in the proper financial period. At the bottom of the page, it talks about estimates used during the audit, and it mentions, the pension plan and those estimates. But the allocation of the pension liability is based on the Commission's proportionate share of the employer contributions to the pension plan. So even though that is an estimate, again, that's actuarially determined. On to the top of the next page. We had no difficulties encountered in performing our audit. We did have an adjustment. It was mainly just a reclassification of the payments that were made to the cities as well as the Hero Center grant. But there were no other adjustments or misstatements found. We had no disagreements with management, or there were also no outside consultations with any other accountants. At the bottom of the page, we had no other audit issues or findings. On to the top of the next page, under other matters, we're just disclosing that we did not audit the management discussion and analysis piece that we went over, but that information was subject to inquiry of management. Any questions on the management letter?
Nope.
Okay, great. Then that concludes my report on the annual financial statements. Thank you for your time this morning, or not this morning, this evening. I guess it's been a long day. And thanks for having me.
All right, thank you very much, Anna. We appreciate you taking time out of your evening to come and enlighten us. So I guess, Commission, we need to have a vote on this, on whether or not we accept the Harrington, Langer and Associates financial audit for 2019. So I guess I'd be looking for a motion as such.
Commissioner Bloom, motion to approve the audit.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner James, I second it.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Please take roll call.
Commissioner Thiede,
Aye.
James,
Say that again?
James,
Oh, sorry. Aye.
Bloom,
Aye.
Rom,
Aye.
Ingman,
Aye.
Date,
Aye.
Diefenbach.
Aye.
Motion's approved.
Very good. Okay. So,
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
thanks, everyone. Let's see. That was number 7, and we're on to number 8, which is new business and the 2021 budget draft. Mr. Executive Director, I believe you're going to take that, correct?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just wanted to make note for you all that the budget schedule that we had talked about in July was included in the packet in the memo. And so we're looking at approving approving our budget for next year and at our next meeting here, the full commission meeting on October 22nd. So what I've included in the packet is the initial budget draft, and going back to what I had mentioned about our P&L and taking the 10% off the top for this year and how revenues have been above that so far. This particular budget is working with a more of a status quo type income level. So it does not reflect another 10% cut. It is reflective of what we've been receiving in the past 3 months. So, I'm sorry, 3 quarters. And so that's something that we'll take a closer look at the next meeting, at the executive committee meeting in September, and to see how much we want to budget for income for next year, whether we want to do the same type of policy or not. So right now it looks like a 7.5% increase in revenue for 2021. The expenses are also an increase, 5% increase, and that includes a slightly more than a 3.5% increase in wages. I'm anticipating that the wage increase will be in line to what our member cities are potentially going to look at. I know that our cities across the country are looking at challenges because of the pandemic and their revenue. And so all this to say that this is just the starting point, and that I really appreciate any feedback you have regarding this. The committees, the Human Resources Committee and Strategic Planning Committee, will also have input on these numbers, and then also our city administration. So other than that, there's no action on this tonight. Just the heads up that we will finalize this before our next meeting. So any other questions on that?
So Mark, this is Rob. So even with the loss, I mean, so this will be the first time that we're officially eliminating CenturyLink as a projected revenue source for the year. So even with the elimination of that, you still show a 7% increase just from Comcast alone. Is that what you're saying?
Based on this year's budget, 2020, a 7%, because for this year's budget, 2020, we took 10% off the top.
Okay.
So our actual numbers have been higher, and so we're using the actual numbers that have come in over the last 2 quarters, 3 since the FCC ruling, but these revenue numbers are based off the first 2 quarters of this year.
Okay.
And I think we discussed a little bit too. This is Dave, Mark. That it could be that the CenturyLink people that are leaving CenturyLink are either cutting the cord or probably coming back to Comcast, and so that might be a reason why we may be seeing a bit of a rise in the Comcast numbers, but that will end after probably next year, right? So anyway, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so this needs to have some work still done on it. I'm also another area is our capital expenditure. I did put our historic number of $500,000 in capital expenditures for next year. I'm still receiving some of the project schedule for next year from some of the cities. The big one is going to be the new city hall for the city of Newport and the council chamber upgrades there. And then just our typical maintenance and production schedule, capital production schedule that will I've received some project potentials, but they haven't all come in yet. So right now there's a $500,000 placeholder in there that I think would cover it, but we really haven't done some cost estimation yet on some of the projects. For example, the city of Newport, right now we have $150,000 in the budget, but we don't have any real numbers from the integrator in the design plans as of yet. So we'll work on those in the next couple months.
All right. Any other questions right now about the draft budget for 2021? Seeing or hearing none, we will move on then to number 9, which is commission comments and requests. Does anyone have any comments or requests? Yes, Mark.
Would the commission and executive committee like to continue meeting virtually for the rest of the year?
Yeah, either way is fine with me. It's pretty easy to meet this way.
Yeah, either way is fine with me also.
Okay.
That's fine.
Except we're not getting our pizza fix every other month.
Yeah, I missed the pizza.
Can we somehow have virtual pizza, like deliver it and we can all eat together?
There you go, right?
Can't have your cake and eat it too.
Or pizzas.
Yeah. I don't care either way.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about that just with all the work that we're doing in, council chambers and over at public safety. For us, the key thing for us is to kind of go towards those hybrid configurations so that we can have some people in person and some people virtual. And so I would think if we did anything, that would be our first step, is to not say we all just climb back into a room together, but that we talk about, well, let's, either take some turns or do something with that hybrid kind of configuration. So I'm fine with where we are now, but I guess if that would be what I would think would be our first step towards getting back to something normal, would be kind of that hybrid version of it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Well, I guess that's number 9. Number 10 is, I will mention that the next executive committee meeting is September 24th at 6:30. And as of right now, it'll be virtual. And then the next regular meeting is Thursday, October 22nd. And as we just discussed, it'll probably also be a virtual meeting or some form of hybrid. So that being said, number 10 is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second. Adjourn.
I heard a motion and a second.
Dayton Ingman.
Aye.
Oh, Phoebe.
Aye.
James.
I'll answer the phone and say aye.
Bloom.
Aye.
Date.
Aye.
Rom.
Aye.
Diefenbach.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
All right, gang, we are adjourned.